All right, we're going to lecture on muscles of the leg, which is from the knee to the ankle. So page 116 of your lab manual. Muscles of the leg are going to act on the ankle joint and the foot. So let's take those. And then also some, just like the forearm, some of them go into your digits or your toes. Let's see, the muscles of the leg, we're beginning with the anterior compartment of the leg. So we're starting with tibialis anterior. This is a rather obvious muscle when you contract it. If you were to dorsiflex, so you can point your feet up to the sky, then you can feel the muscle on the anterior shin really kind of contract and get hard. This is this muscle here. It's also, if you have ever gotten shin splints, this is the muscle that is most notorious in shin splints. That's when it sort of comes away from the bone when you have very strenuous exercise. So tibialis anterior is on the tibia, on the anterior of the tibia, as it says. So we can see that the origin is our lateral condyle and shaft of the tibia, and it's going to insert onto the first metatarsal and our medial cuneiform. So the first metatarsal, remember, that is your big toe, and the medial cuneiform is going to be the first tarsal under the big toe. So what you're going to find is this muscle kind of runs medially. Okay, so there's our first digit. And when this contracts, it's not only going to dorsiflex your toes and your ankle, but it's also going to invert the foot because these medial tendons are going to get sort of pulled up. And so the bottom of your foot's going to come medially into that medial plane. So that is our first tibialis anterior. And then we have our two extensor hallucis longus and extensor digitorum longus. So remember that the word hallucis or hallux refer to your big toe, and the word digitorum is digits 2 through 5. So when you see the word digitorum, this muscle is going to extend, right? Extensor, digit 2 through 5. And the extensor hallucis longus will just extend digit 1. So you can see their insertions are going to reinforce that action, and in order, right? So this longer muscle, this is going to be our extensor digitorum longus, and extensor hallucis longus is smaller and deeper. So this is this is tibialis anterior number 1. This one's extensor digitorum longus, and then deep to that is extensor hallucis longus. This is surface anatomy of our tibialis anterior, so you can see this person is both dorsiflexing her foot as well as inverting her foot. You can see tibialis anterior, the belly of the muscle here. You can actually follow the tendon all the way down, and you can see it run medially into her big toe, into that metatarsal 1 and the medial cuneiform 1. All right, so we're going to move laterally now to our fibularis muscles. So if you remember, the fibula is our lateral leg bone, and so these are named because they are going to have attachments to the fibula. So if you see the origins of our fibularis longus, it's the head and proximal shaft of the fibula, so just around the head of the fibula, and then the fibularis brevis a little shorter, right? So it's going to not go all the way up to the head, but it's going to land just short of that, shy of that, and just originate at the shaft of our fibula. So I'm going to, so here we can see the position of fibularis longus and fibularis brevis. It's a little bit deeper, but let's take a look at this next image because this is really going to show you why they're called long and short. So here is the origin of our fibularis longus. You can see it's going to be near the head and proximal shaft. The tendon's going to come down, and just think about this tendon is very long. So the insertion is going to be on your metatarsal 1 here. So just think about if you are a muscle on the lateral side of your leg, that tendon has to go all the way over to the other side of the foot in order to have that attachment on digit 1. So it's long, has a long way to go. If you look at fibularis brevis, right, this is a shorter belly, and it's going to only go so far as digit 5. So the metatarsal of your 5th digit is on the same side, right? We're both laterally located, the muscle itself and digit 5. So this is a short tendon. So hopefully now fibularis brevis the insertion makes sense to you, and Fibularis longus, the insertion also makes sense to you. So Fibularis is going to evert and plantar flex the foot. So an eversion is this picture here, right? So it should make sense to you that if you have muscles located laterally on your leg, when they contract, they're going to pull the foot, right, bottom of your foot up laterally, or evert the foot. Hopefully you can picture that in your mind's eye. And then we're going to plantar flex. So it's going to do the opposite of our tibialis anterior. So it's going to be an antagonist muscle of tibialis anterior in plantar flexing. All right, moving on to the posterior compartment. We have 4 muscles that are, well, 3 on this slide. Let's start with gastrocnemius. So don't forget that C, gastrocnemius. This is known as your calf muscles. So when you see someone with sort of 2 bumps on the back of their leg, right, those what you call your calf muscles, and that's, you're referring to gastrocnemius. So you want to make sure that you put the heads down. So this is the lateral head and medial head of our gastrocnemius, and they're going to originate at the condyles of the femur. So be careful, because this muscle is going to originate on the femur, so all the way up to our thigh. So this muscle is going to be another muscle that crosses 2 joints. It's going to cross the knee joint, so it's going to help to flex the knee or flex the leg, and it's also going to go all the way down. If you watch it, it crosses our ankle joint and has an insertion on our calcaneus. And so that's going to allow this muscle to plantar flex our foot. So let's take a look at this tendon. You guys should know the name of this piece of connective tissue here. That's called the calcaneal tendon. The sort of casual term for it is the Achilles tendon. But for the exam, right, we want to know is it at the calcaneal tendon, because it is what allows this muscle to insert onto the calcaneus. If you look at the plantaris and the soleus muscle, they both also have insertions onto the calcaneus. So all 3 of these muscles will be synergists of each other. The gastrocnemius, the plantaris, and the soleus are all going to help plantar flex the foot. So they're all going to converge onto the same tendon and insert onto the calcaneus. Let's look at the soleus, since it's here on our image. So soleus is a muscle that is going to be deep to the gastrocnemius. It originates slightly lower on the fibula and tibia, but it's wider. So when you see someone's calf, the 2 bumps that's the end of gastrocnemius, and then picking up the rest of the way, you're going to have the soleus muscle. This is another look so this image right here will be a deeper look. We have taken away gastrocnemius, and we can see soleus. So now we can talk about the next 2, the plantaris and the popliteus muscle. So the plantaris is going to be a muscle that's going to have a very, sort of proximal origin on the femur, and then it's going to come and insert. This very, very long tendon is going to then come into the calcaneal tendon, so it becomes part of the calcaneal tendon. So this is our plantaris muscle, and then we have the popliteus muscle, which is going to also originate on the lateral condyle of the femur, inserting onto the tibia, so it's an oblique muscle. And this one helps to flex and medial rotate the leg. So this is going to be a muscle that only acts the knee joint, right? Because we're moving the leg. It's running from the femur down to the tibia. So it has no action on the foot. It just doesn't even go across the ankle joint. All right, so let's take a look at our deeper muscles of the leg. Okay, before that, so this is your model. Looking at this lateral side, we can see this is our anterior. So this is our tibialis anterior. Coming laterally, we have our extensor hallucis. This is extensor digitorum longus. Deep to that, which you can see down here, is our extensor hallucis longus. One muscle group more lateral is our fibularis muscle. So this up here, this is fibularis longus. And then as you come down, maybe you can make it out in this image here, the muscle fibers start to change direction. And this would be your fibularis brevis. And then as we move one over to the back, we can see that there's this calf muscle here. So this is our gastrocnemius. But if you look carefully, the mottled has a groove, right? So from my pointer superficially, that would be the gastrocnemius. From this pointer deeper, that's actually soleus. Okay, so soleus is going to continue on down the leg, and we can see where the calcaneal tendon originates, and then finally inserting onto where the calcaneus would be. All right, this is another sort of just superficial look at the gastrocnemius. So very well developed, obviously, gastrocnemius muscle, but then you see where the belly of that muscle ends, right? And so the rest of the muscle back here would be soleus. All right, lastly, we have muscles of the deep posterior leg. We have tibialis posterior. So we did have a tibialis anterior, and now we have a tibialis posterior. So it's the straight up and down middle of our posterior leg. Then we can see we have our flexor hallucis longus and flexor digitorum longus. So we had extensors of our toes on the front of our leg. So imagine that if you have your hand on the front of your leg, the muscle there is going to have tendons that go to the top of your foot. So when those muscles contract, they're going to pull the top of your foot. So the attachment to the top of your phalanges and your metatarsals are going to be pulled up. So that's going to be an extension. So if I said extend your toes, right, you're going to point your toes up to the sky. But flexing your toes is curling them down. And so these muscles, what they're going to do is they're going to go underneath your foot, and they're going to have insertions to the bottom of your phalanges and your metatarsals. So they're going to flex your toes. So flexor hallucis longus is going to flex the big toe. Flexor digitorum longus is going to flex digits 2 through 5. All right, so we're going to wrap up the lower extremity, which is some questions here. So the first one and the second one, powerful extensors of the knee are, and let you think about that for a second, and hopefully you came up with your quadriceps. Your quadriceps are going to extend the knee. Extending the knee is to straighten your knee. What is a gluteus maximus action? So if you said to extend the thigh, you are correct. What two joints does Sartorius cross? Remember that Sartorius is the strap-like muscle. So if you answered hip joint and knee joint, you are correct. What muscle or group is most stretched in the position below? So you can see this person's leg is pulled up in this direction. So the posterior leg is going to be stretched in this position. And out of your choices, the rectus femoris is going to be on the anterior leg. The sartorius is on the anterior leg. The hamstring group is on the posterior thigh. I should say rectus femoris is the anterior thigh. Sartorius is anterior thigh. And iliopsoas is a hip flexor. So she's actually flexing her hip right now. So your answer will be hamstring group. What muscle is she using to put her thigh in this position? So this is a really strong woman. She is using her, so let's just talk about the action. The action is extension of her thigh, right? So her thigh is moved posteriorly beyond the 180 degrees, that plane. So powerful thigh extender muscle is going to be your gluteus maximus. Which muscles are being stretched? So we want to look at the muscles on the anterior surface, because in this sort of extended position, the back extension, you are stretching the front body. So you're stretching her abdominals in this instance. And you're also stretching the front, the anterior quadricep muscles in this position as well. All right, so this is what muscles can you see? So we talked about this. You can see the nice gastrocnemius. You can see where the gastrocnemius ends. You can see the soleus pick up after that. We can see the calcaneal tendon very prominently back here. And we can see the position that this person in. This is going to be a plantar flex, which the gastrocnemius and the soleus are both responsible for. What muscles can you see here? So I chose this image to show you her medial thigh muscles. The one that's very prominent that you can see here, that's gracilis. So gracilis is a very medial inner thigh muscle, part of her adductor groups. You can also see that she's very well developed quadriceps muscles. Let's move on to this one. So this is the thigh. It's hard to figure out because everything is so hypertrophied, but this would be the patella. And then we have a very large body muscle right here, which is going to be our vastus medialis. If we go laterally, right, this is going to be the vastus lateralis. And if we go in the middle, right, this is going to be our rectus femoris muscle. So I chose this because this image really shows the sartorius, a very well-developed sartorius muscle. So the sartorius originates in the anterior superior iliac spine, which is going to be the point of her hip here. You can see this muscle run medially, right? So it's going to run medially. It's going to insert below her knee on that medial tibial condyle. So this is a really good image of the sartorius. You can also see that her vastus medialis is very well developed. It looks like just pushing that sartorius out of the way. Obviously, you can also see a lot of chest muscles here. Her abdominal muscles, rectus abdominis here, the linea alba down the center. Very big deltoids, biceps brachii, her triceps brachii. And then this one, I get Snickers in class, but I wanted to show you the shape of your gluteus muscles without any body fat. So for a bodybuilder, body fat is something that they don't want during competition. So you can see that the gluteus maximus is a muscle that is very posterior, right? So it's going to originate on that ilium, the sacrum, and then come in and then have an insertion on that gluteal tuberosity of her femur. It will also laterally come wide and then insert onto that IT band, which would be on her lateral thigh. So that's gluteus maximus. The shape of most people who are not professional bodybuilders would have a lot of adipose there, which would fill out the rest of your rear end. But that's it's just strictly gluteus maximus with no body fat. Then you can see here we have a muscle, so that's going to be gluteus medius. And then you can see for her thigh is just enormously huge. The muscle group here on the lateral thigh is going to be vastus lateralis. So vastus lateralis is actually quite, it encompasses the entire lateral thigh. And then finally we have tibialis anterior, our tibialis anterior tendon that's visible. And then some model images. So because I'm recording these, we're probably not going to be using model images or models in the exam, but so I'll quickly run through what you see here. So this is going to be our adductor longus, number 1, sartorius, number 2, number 3 is vastus medialis, number 4 is rectus femoris, number 5 is vastus lateralis, number 6 is tensor fasciae latae. What you can see here is the inguinal triangle with our femoral nerve in yellow, femoral artery in red, and femoral vein in blue. Posterior thigh, gluteus maximus. Our lateral hamstring is going to be our biceps femoris. This is the long head. The short head is deep. This is semitendinosus, and this is semimembranosus. This is going to be our adductor group. So this is adductor magnus. This is our gracilis. I'm going to skip that one for now. Okay, that's it for this lecture.